Good morning. Hey everybody, thank you for attending today. Today we're going to learn about importing and exporting in and out of Paladin. It's a very hot topic. A lot of people signed in today on this beautiful day in Bend, Oregon. My name is Charles Owen. I'll be your host today, and I do have a patch on my eye. I just had surgery, so I have to keep it covered. So I look a little strange. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna go ahead and film or videotape this or record it rather, so you can actually go in later and watch this. There's a lot of information that we're going to be covering today. I hope to finish within 20-30 minutes maximum, but hopefully it'll be good information. It's going to give you all the different tips and points on importing, on exporting, on some of the alternative ways to get data out of Paladin. And then also I'll be covering ODBC, the Open Database Connectivity option. So as you can see on this list of what you'll learn today, I'm going to share with you the capabilities and benefits, what the best tool is for working with your data, exporting data from Paladin, alternative ways to export data, and then we'll go through the entire importing inventory data. I'll just go over inventory data, even though we have other tables that you can import. I'll just be using the inventory as an example today. And then some of the precautions that you might want to look out for, and then we'll go over the Open Database Connectivity or ODBC connector. So I am excited about this. I hope you are. So the first slide here is the capabilities and benefits. So the first thing is you can do custom reporting. It's just super simple. Wait till I show you this, the ODBC component. You'll hopefully be amazed. You can also transform your data into column and row format for easy analysis and editing. It provides the ability to affect change in a global manner. One example is inventory updates, inventory prices. You can update those in bulk. Easily add supplier catalogs, either obscure or active catalogs or active inventory items to your system very quickly and easily. Import customer data and third-party invoices from other systems like fuel systems and web store and other third-party systems. We can go ahead and pull in invoice information, and you can actually do this as well. And then lastly, import purchase orders for non-EDI suppliers. So if you're not doing electronic data interchange with your suppliers and you want to make it easy to import their invoices upon your truck arriving, you can do that in Paladin. All right, so what's the best tool for this? Excel. It's just makes sense. You know, it's required for a lot of the reports in Paladin. It's included in Office 365. We are a Microsoft Gold certified partner, so we can sell you the Office 365 subscription, and we can install you and get you set up with Excel. So the process for exporting data from Paladin. So I'm going to go through the exporting all inventory data from Paladin just to show you an example. And then I'll get into showing you some of the other easier ways to export data. But what we're doing is we're exporting data in bulk, meaning we're grabbing every single column that is in the Paladin system for inventory. So we'll start out with this example of the inventory data. First thing is, in Paladin, on the very top, you go to Maintain, then Data Viewer. Once you go there, it'll pull up the inventory window here, and you have a choice to go into export or import. We are going to go to export. So you'll see the little red circles there. You click on the inventory within the data viewer, and then you click on export. Once you do that, in the export options, you have an option to select whether or not this is going in. This is coming from the active inventory. Those are all your active inventory items in the system, or if it's coming from an obscure catalog. So a catalog where you might have, 100,000 items that aren't part of your active inventory, but are there in case you wanted to sell them in the future. Next, you can select view. So if I go back here, so you can select view on the bottom, and once you hit view, you'll see this list that I'm showing on the screen here: part number, alternate part number, description 1 and 2, and so on. It slides, that bar slides way over to the right. There are numerous fields and columns in inventory. So once you decide what suppliers you want to pull out, or all suppliers, I normally just do all suppliers if I'm working with the entire inventory, but you can isolate a specific data when exporting information from the inventory, from your active inventory. You can say just for your primary supplier or just XYZ supplier. And then we can show also weekly sales totals, and include deleted items. And then down below, you just hit view and save. So we'll continue here. So the number of weeks box, this is kind of a blow up of what I just showed you. Just shows you can also determine not only the suppliers, but show weekly sales totals. Also include deleted items if you wish to. And then you hit the view, and that's where you get that window. And then here you can save the file when you're exporting this data. You can save it as tab delimited or Excel. So once you hit the save button, it's going to go ahead and save that file. It's going to ask you, where do you want to put that file? What do you want to call that file? And since I selected Excel as my type, you can select either Excel or tab delimited. I selected Excel, so it's looking for an Excel save type. So I just put in inventory export 2023 June. And then I can determine where I want to put that. In that case, this case, I just put it on the desktop. So that's all there is to exporting data, and that's going to give you everything in the inventory. Now, because I didn't specify a supplier, it's going to give me every column and row in inventory on my export file. Okay, so there are other exportable Paladin tables also. The customer data, that's also under that same area, maintain data viewer, and then you would go to customer. Purchase order information you can export as well. General ledger summary by date range you can export, and invoices by date range as well you can export. So not only, I just showed you the example of exporting inventory, but you can also export other tables as well from Paladin. Now, when we get into ODBC, you're going to see everything will be open to you, because ODBC opens up every table in the system. Alternative ways to export data. So if I don't feel like going to maintain inventory and exporting all of my inventory, I can just run a report and push it into Excel. That's another way of exporting data from Paladin. So data viewer is going to give you a lot of information, probably more than what you can use. But if you go in and you generate a master report or item sold report or inventory count list, discontinued items report, you can export most of all of those to Excel. And then you have your exported data. And then you can be very specific as to the criteria under your report settings. In addition, when you click on the magnifying glasses in Paladin, you'll see them all over the inventory, as well as all over customer, and there's different modules in the system where you'll see these little magnifying glasses. When you do, if you click on it, it's going to give you detail. In almost all cases where you see the detail when pressing on magnifying glass, it will produce, allow you to produce an Excel export of that. In the very bottom, it's going to say either export to Excel or report or something, but when you click on that button on the bottom, it will call up Excel and it will give you all that information in Excel. So again, just other ways you can pull data out of Paladin. So now let's get into the inventory aspect. So we talked about how to export data using the data viewer, also how to export data using reports. Now, importing is similar in that you go to the data viewer as well, maintain data viewer, and you go into inventory, but this time you'll select the import. But let's go over this. So first thing you want to do in preparation is you want to run a backup. Usually it's the terminal named terminal 1. You select backup and click yes. And when the backup is finished, make sure you go to the file system and verify the backups. There's usually a shortcut to backups loaded with Paladin. You click on that and it should show you the backup. And if it's done on the right terminal, you're going to have a lot of data. If it's not done on the right terminal, you may have a very, very small file. So make sure again that you're on the database server, the Paladin database server, which is normally, as I mentioned, terminal 1. Look at the date, look at the timestamp, and look at the size and make sure it's bigger than the time before, as that's how you can identify them as a valid backup. Then select Data Viewer, Maintain Data Viewer, just like we did with the export. But here we're going to click the Import button. So you go into Inventory. After you go into Maintain Data Viewer, go to Inventory, select Import, and then you want to select either, let's see, Tab Delimited or Excel from the list of the to the left there where it says Load File. I selected Excel in this case, meaning I am going to go after or import from an Excel document rather than a tab delimited file, but either one is supported. Click Load File. It's going to ask you to browse to the file to open it up. In this case, I have inventory 62223, and I hit Open. Now at this point, it's going to ask me a couple other questions, like, again, we already selected Excel, and next you can select whether or not you want to import data into either the active inventory, those are all your active items in the system, or you want to import an obscure catalog. If you wish to import an obscure catalog, you can do that. We also can do that for you. We have a small charge, but we will be glad to do this. And anytime you want to do an import, if you don't feel comfortable, absolutely, please call Paladin. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. So from that drop-down list, you can select active inventory. Then you have an opportunity to either add new items or update existing items. Now, in the case of a price update, in the case of updating whatever, you're going to select update existing items. In the case of adding an obscure catalog or adding new items into your active inventory, you want to select add new items. If you check the wrong box, for example, if you have a new catalog and you select update existing items, it'll say none of the items were updated because you have to select the right box, add new items or update existing items. Next, you press the import button. And before you do this, again, just make sure that a backup has been made. And also, it's a good idea to, not have anybody on the system at the time that you do this, maybe after hours. When the import is complete, it'll just give you a message on the screen saying import complete. And there will be a list of items that were thrown out, or if there were any problems, you'll see that. Now this slide is just talking about taking precautions when you import data. Make sure a backup is made, and not only should you do a backup, but what I always do is I export the inventory. I just go to the maintain inventory or maintain data viewer inventory, select export, and I make a file, because that's all the data in my inventory that I can just keep separate from the actual backup. If there was a problem with the backup, or you couldn't get access to the backup, or for whatever reason, you still have your entire inventory backed up. It's best to perform this after hours when nobody else is logged into Paladin. And be careful of the data that you bring in, garbage out. Validate your data. It can really harm things if you're not careful. And you want to make sure you bring in valid information, like no spaces. You don't want to bring in, weird characters and that sort of thing. It should be done the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time with the KBA in hand. Follow the directions. Or call Paladin support. They'll walk you through this process. If it's your first time, don't attempt this on your own. And if you do, if you want to do this, you feel comfortable with it, that's fine. But make sure you only do 1 or 2 items. Don't import everything off the first. Import 1 or 2 items, check it out, import 1 or 2 items again for a second time, look at every single field, make sure everything is looking copacetic, and if it is, then go ahead and expand that import. All right, now one of my favorite topics, open database connectivity. So open database is or ODBC is an open standard application programming interface. It allows you to grab disparate data from structured data sources and bring them in through structured query language or SQL syntaxes. Now, you don't have to know about any of these acronyms. You don't have to know. ODBC is really simple to use. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to be a developer. That's the cool thing about this. So let's see how this is done. So first off, you quickly create, here's some of the advantages. You can quickly create custom reports. You can access the PO data in a column and row format. And this is gathering data and grabbing data this is yet a third technique to export data out of Paladin, to pull data. That's what ODBC is all about. It's all about getting access to all the data elements in Paladin and sucking those out and bringing them into an Excel document. It is read-only. You have to understand that. You're not going to be able to turn around with ODBC and write a script that inserts items into your inventory or into your other tables. We protect you against that. We have written a few of the importers, like we have already discussed, under the data viewer. So you can import certain items from certain tables, but not everything. In the case of ODBC, you're able to grab everything and pull it out. So also you can easily sort the data, create custom reports and statements. You can get access to most of the tables in Paladin. And as I mentioned, they're read-only. So here's how it's done, right? You don't even have to have Paladin open. Isn't that cool? You just need to bring up Excel. Once you go into Excel, you click the Get Data, or I'm sorry, you click the Data table on top, or the Data module on top. And then from there, on the far left, you'll see Get Data. And then it's going to be from other sources. And then you're going to select from Microsoft Query. There is one down on the bottom, towards the bottom, that I don't show here that says from ODBC. You can do that, but it requires a little bit more technical sign in and different things to get access to the database. When you say from Microsoft Query, it already knows what to do. So in this case, it's going to bring up your data sources that are compliant with ODBC, that being database or DBase files, Excel files, Microsoft Access files, and in this case, Paladin. Now, if you're trying this on any terminal, it may not be, the connector may not be there. The connector needs to be on your terminal 1. So when you do this activity of pulling information using ODBC, you want to make sure that you're on terminal 1, or the terminal that has the database on it. Can you set it up on the other terminals? Yes, but we normally just set it up one time on the main terminal, the database server for Paladin. We can, if you have for whatever reason, you can't get access to that and you need access to it, we can set you up on any of the terminals to access the database. All right, so you're going to access Paladin. Then what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a little wizard. Wizard is simple to follow. This was designed by Microsoft in Excel. It's just, paint by the numbers. Super easy stuff here. So you're going to click on the table you want. In this case, I've selected inventory. And then you can highlight and push over all of the fields or the columns that you want in your query. I selected inventory part number, inventory description 1, inventory stock on hand, inventory market cost, and inventory unit cost, which is the average cost. So you can do more than, you can select more columns from other tables. That requires a join, which is pretty simple to do using the wizard, but let's just start out simple here. We're going to go after data in one table. So again, we select the fields that we want, or we can call them columns, in your query. Next, it's going to ask you, do you want to specify certain optional filters like equals, not equals, is greater than, is less than, begins with, ends with. There's just a number of different criteria that you can select, and you can select up to 3 of them, as you can see on this. There are or statements, and I just normally just say next through this, but if there are specific information through maybe a date range that you want to look through, you can do that. Or prices over a certain amount or under a certain amount. There's just a number of different criteria that you can set when using this wizard and collecting information. And the last one is sorting. So you can sort. You can sort, in this case, I'm sorting by description 1 in ascending, A to Z. I can also select descending. I can select a secondary sort and a third sort as well if I wanted to. So once you hit the OK button, there's a couple other boxes that come up. Say, are you sure? Are you okay? Are you good where it's at? Just say next, next, boom. And now all of that data that resides in Paladin for that particular query is now in Excel right in front of you. So you now have access to all this information. This particular script in Excel, that wizard, you actually wrote, by following the wizard, you wrote a SQL or structured query language syntax or script. That can be saved and you can run that again. So you don't have to go through this whole process again. You can just recall that particular script and run it. So pretty handy. This again allows you to get all and any information in Paladin. It is read only. You're just grabbing this information. However, now that you have this file, as long as you change those headers to match the headers on the import file, which are pretty much identical without the INV underscore that you see on the blue bar on line 1, you take out that and you make it match, the header match the inventory importer. You can then, after making changes to this, turn around and import this data as well. There's a whole lot of different ways to skin the cat, folks. All right, so that is it, and that was right about 24 minutes. So I hope this was helpful. There's a couple other resources you can go into, how to import inventory data into Paladin database, and this webinar will also be posted. We used to have some other webinars, and we do have, I believe, a knowledge base article on importing. If you just search for import, you'll see that in knowledge base. And then just as a plug for next time on July 18th, we're doing a Roundup for Charity webinar. Whether or not you know it, Paladin is already set up for rounding up. You can choose up to 4 different charities to choose from at checkout. Now it pops up for the cashier, and then the cashier just says, hey, you want to make a charity donation, you can just round up your $1.50 to $2, and we can push 50 cents towards this particular charity. It is a great thing to do. Every store should be doing this. You should all be doing this. It's no skin off your back. You're just taking money from the customers, and they're feeling like they did something good, and you definitely are doing something good. At the end of the day, you just produce a report, tells you how much money you give to that particular charity, and you're done. Now, you can't write this off because it's not your money, but your customers can write it off if they wish to write off the change. And they can actually turn that money into anything they want. They can say, yeah, give them $5 and you can make that change. Okay, I do see a question. Thank you for the question, Nancy. through the import, can you add supplier part information under the ordering tab? Of course you can, yes. Not only for supplier 1, but also for supplier 2. I think I know what you're talking about here. And I think you're talking about when you actually go into inventory and you click on the supplier tab, there's a couple of fields there which enable you to add supplier part information. Part as in cost, as in minimum order quantity. I don't think so, because I think those were features that were added later, and they're not actually part of that import. Now you can, in the standard inventory, if you wanted to bring in supplier information and cost information, you can certainly do that, and that will bring it into to the inventory. But I think the actual figuring out different costs for different suppliers, that is it's a different update. So I don't think so, but please reach out to either the text or myself, and we can walk you through that process. And as always, we can import. If you have something to import that you don't have access to importing, that's what we're here for. We will do that for you. So good question. I appreciate it, although I don't know if I answered it the way that you wanted me to. But if you need any clarification, just go ahead and plug in another question. Again, this was a really popular topic. I hope this was helpful for everybody. I thank you for your time. God bless and be safe. Oh, here we go. Here's another question. Is there a KBA or staff member familiar with import-export for multi-store? Yeah, we have a couple of those around. Call in and we'll direct you to the right person. We do have import-export for multi-store. Has a few caveats. It's a little bit different than single store. Single store, it's a Firebird database. With multi-store, it's a Microsoft SQL database. And because you don't have just a single inventory, you have an inventory for each store, and then you have the master or the corporate inventory that encompasses all of the items. It's a little bit more tricky, but it's absolutely doable. And yes, we do have a staff member that can help you with that. So give us a call. All right, thanks everybody, I appreciate it.